Welcome to Born to be Barefoot. I'm your host, Stuart Gordon, with my co-host, Katie Tsuyuki.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Born to be Barefoot podcast. I'm your host, Katie Tsuyuki, and we have a great guy over from Oz, Paul Thompson. Paul, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have you on here. I'm missing my co-host this morning, Stuart Gordon, but he may jump on midway or something if he can. But anyways, Paul, so you are the owner of the Barefoot movement, right?
That's right.
Sorry,
yeah.
Podiatrist of over 10 years and owner of the Barefoot movement. Why don't you tell our people here what the Barefoot movement is all about?
It's literally as it sounds. It's about being barefoot as much as you can and moving barefoot. So I am a podiatrist, haven't stopped for it's way closer to 15 years now. And I started my journey as a normal, traditional podiatrist, but it just didn't gel. I just found, traditionally we're trained to put people in orthotics. Most conditions lead to an orthotic in podiatry. And it just, for me, I wasn't fixing the underlying problem for people, including myself. I had a snowboard kook incident back in about 2009 where I blew my knee out. Let's not talk about that. And ever since then, I already had some issues going on with my feet that I was constantly, hitting up the shoe reps and for, all the shoes with the bells and whistles, trying to fix what I had going on, making orthotics for myself. Then that injury in about 2009 sent me back more. I just couldn't get my knee right. By about 2013, I'd say, my little guy was kind of just born. We're over in Hawaii on a trip, walking around with him and got another bout of plantar fasciitis. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm a podiatrist. I can't even fix myself.
Yeah, right.
I was already starting to question, I'm not really fixing the underlying problem of a lot of my clients. I'm getting them out of pain, but, which I could get myself out of pain when I needed to, but wasn't fixing it. I live on the beach. I surf. I do a lot of board sports. Whenever I wasn't in the orthotics or wasn't in the right shoe, things would flare up. And I just found some really good mentors, was trialing things on myself, went down a whole new path and just found that the more I was training my feet to become stronger and out of all that support, the better I started to feel. And look, there was definitely some ups and downs. I made some kind of mistakes in the way I was trying to treat myself and probably jumped into things a little bit too hard and fast at times. But over time, I started to find a bit of a rhythm of what was working not only on myself, but then with clients. And that then became the Barefoot movement, where I was just trying to, be anti-orthotic, but, look, I still, if the need be, we still look at that as an option for people that really need it. But I wanted to get away from that traditional model and really start to look at the underlying root cause of people's issues. And that was how the Barefoot movement came about, and then just sort of grew organically. Once I started kind of living my truth, I guess, and really owning that and loving what I was doing, there's just the amount of people that started coming out of the woodwork, either other practitioners or people from different companies, and lots of new clients that it just resonated with, and it just started to grow to the point that that's kind of what I do now, which is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love these, we've had a couple different people come on. They've had a problem, and then they've found their own way to deal with it, and then kind of is sharing that with other people. And, I love seeing people find that problem of their own even, and then go and fix it, and I find that a lot of times it does kind of, their path leads away from maybe what the mainstream things that they have been taught, you are kind of taught orthotics, right? And holding your foot in this brace neutral position while you're doing all these movements. hey, all these people are talking about it. It seems like a good idea, right? It gets you and some of your clients out of that pain zone, which, that's what we're going for, right? To be pain-free and be moving. So
that's the dream, right? That's what we all want. But I know for me too, like a big eye-opening moment, because I did, like, through all my university training and stuff, we do a lot of biomechanics. That's how the body moves under load, and like gait patterns, so how the pattern of how you walk, what your foot goes through. So I knew that inside out. And then it was one of my mentors that I had from a different industry. He was a chiropractor, had said to me, have you actually thought about I think I had plantar fasciitis at the time, or it might be my knee. Like, have you thought about the position your foot is in the shoe and how it's affecting how you're moving? I was like, no. And the more I started actually looking at how these raised heels in shoes and different features that we just think is normal, the position that my foot was in, I was like, oh my God, like that is putting a lot of stuff under tension that shouldn't be under tension. Like, when you start digging into some of the mainstream things that we just do because we think we're meant to do it, it's not always right. It's just that it's become an average of what may have worked for a few people. So then a lot of people try and do it. Next minute, there's people making money off it. It becomes a huge industry. And now we just do it because we think that's what we have to do. Doesn't always make it right.
Totally. Like, now, because I have podiatrists ear right now, lifting shoes, that has always gotten me, because like I'm a little bit more towards barefoot movement, kind of lifting the way how you naturally lift. But they have all the lifting shoes that are hard soled, raised by a few centimeters in the back and stuff. Like I had a trainer that was like, that's cheating. That's not using your whole muscle. That's cheating. Like, what's your take on that, Paul?
I agree. I think it's a way of getting around dysfunction, or for people that don't have the right mobility. It's a great way to get through that movement. But I think lifting shoes and that sort of thing can be used as an aid for like competition days, is where you'd want to use it. So if you can be, lifting barefoot, use full range of motion, activating the right muscles, the right patterns, then when you want to lift that bit heavier or that bit more, you throw a lifting shoe on to cheat and give you a bit of an upper hand, then why not? But if you're constantly lifting with your heels raised, that's changing the pattern. That changes how you use all the muscles, and it changes the alignment of things. So, but again, like if there's someone who doesn't have full range, they can be, you've got limited ankle range, or maybe you have like a fused ankle, then that can be a really good way of being able to do that same movement and get around the mobility issue. But for the most part, again, it's just become a mainstream thing that people use a lifting shoe. Maybe not cheating, but it's like, it's not helping you holistically build kind of the strength, the mobility, the stability that you need for those movements. It may make you look like you're lifting a lot more, but in reality, you're relying on that shoe to lift that amount of weight, or go through that amount of range.
How do you feel? Like, does that translate into running shoes as well? Like, because like with running shoes, it's like zero drop versus a bit of a lift. Like, what do you think?
Yeah. So you can, like, I've had guys that have trained for ultras and even just normal marathons that have trained like barefoot, and then on game day they'll use a more cushioned shoe, maybe a little bit of support, just to like take some load off for that race. But a lot of them then don't even bother, because they feel that it changes their gait. And that's the issue, right? Like in lifting, it's one thing because you're kind of static. Well, more or less you're moving, but you're static in that you're not, changing direction or whatever. In walking and running, there's a lot more of a dynamic movement going on. So if you're training in a flat shoe and you're trying to build that strength in a flatter shoe and then you go to a raised heel for running, that can change the biomechanics of how you're moving. So it may not help you in that case. Like you can cause more hyperextension of the knees, more forefoot loading. It can change how much extension we have. It can also, the more like cushioning and heel we have, it can make a longer stride as well. So that can cause more of a braking effect through your knee and hip. So, for some people it works, but as a general rule with running and stuff, I'd say, if you're training in a flat shoe, then you'd want to stick to that flat shoe on game day. You may just add maybe some more cushioning if it's a longer run, to avoid the compounding compression on the foot and forces as you run. But yeah, I'd say I'd probably just stick to the same shoe that I'm training in if I was running an event.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do a lot of gait assessment, right? It's part of the Barefoot movement. It's a part of services you offer, right?
Yeah.
So when these gait assessments, like I believe anyone that's doing any sport for sure, but even just worker, lots of movement on their feet should have their gait assessed, right? Because Paul, it's kind of like breathing, right? Like you would think that it comes, firsthand, just be able autonomous, but it's not, right?
No, it probably was when we were for 90, 9% of us, let's say, and even like breathing for a huge percent of us when we were born and going through our developmental patterns as a baby, we would breathe properly. So we'd be breathing in the belly, we'd be activating our core as we breathe. There'd be things that we just do that's built into us. Walking is a similar thing. You'll find most kids, again, not all, but most kids will go through similar milestones at similar times and start to develop their gait pattern, their walking pattern. And, some of them may look a little different and whatever, that's fine. But it's then when we start to introduce shoes, sitting, different types of clothing, that our gait can change, our breathing can change, different foods as well can cause inflammatory aspects within our body that can change breathing, can change movement, in that we may get some inflammation around joints, not painful, but just enough that it may change the range of motion that we're using, and we start to compensate around that, which changes our gait. So yeah, walking, as we become maybe late teenagers, sometimes it's getting earlier and earlier, I find actually, but by the time we're an adult, our gait can be really dysfunctional from what it was when we were little. So yeah, gait assessments are huge. That's kind of what I do. I don't do, personal training or exercises to build fitness. All of what I do is around movement patterns and trying to recreate or reset some basic movement patterns and get some alignment and symmetry back between like the muscles, the tendons, ligaments, joints, start getting things moving in a way that's more efficient. So there's less stress going through like joints, tendons. We create more stability, balance. But you're right, like for me, it doesn't matter. Like I've worked with snowboard athletes, surfing athletes, did some stuff with some high-end like Nitro Circus, the motorbike guys, like all that sort of stuff, local football teams. It doesn't matter who it is or what they're doing. Like I've done lots of stuff with local corporate companies too, that are just people sitting all day in, corporate offices. It doesn't matter what it is you're doing. The thing that starts to set up your movement patterns that you're doing every day in, day out, without thinking about it, is how you stand and how you walk. Because as you're walking, you're creating these kind of movement patterns that then will filter into how you train at the gym, how you're running, how you're, how you're driving through your foot through a turn on a board, or how you're landing. Like, it doesn't matter what it is you're doing, right? It starts to, and you can train and try and build certain movement patterns in a specific sport or thing. But if you're then walking a different way and kind of undoing some of that, there's this constant battle between, what you're trying to do within your sport or at the gym or your whatever it is that you do, that you think, it's the gym that I keep getting hurt at. Well, it's not. Like, often, as then we watch someone walk and it's like, look at, you start to pick apart all these patterns and like, it might be like really weak, dysfunctional glutes. And they're like, but I train my glutes. And it's like, you do. And you're really good at doing those clams, or you're good at doing those, that machine that does your glutes. Mm-hmm. But your brain has no idea how to use that in a functional form. Like when you're actually moving and it needs to turn it on and off at the right time, it doesn't know how to do that, or other parts of the body. And that's what walking is. We're constantly strengthening those dysfunctional patterns of like, using our quads more than our glutes or whatever. And so when we start to change and rebuild the like better patterns and introduce an awareness around patterns, then often I'll find that then transitions into those sports or daily movements as well. Yeah. So gait's really important. Like gait's
your sport's not hurting you, it's your gait that's hurting you.
More often than not. Like unless you, have an injury, like if you trip over a gutter and come down and you twist your ankle, or, you know what I mean? Like there's things that are acute. There's an acute injury that, or you're at the gym and you drop the weights on you and it's like, okay, that was the gym. Yeah, you're right. Like you literally just drop weights on you, that hurts. But like a lot of issues I see, they're chronic. They're things that people just like have this niggly knee or this, thing as, every time I go to the gym, it sets it off. And it's like, they're the things that it's more movement pattern based. Mm-hmm. And, it might be the gym that's the final straw, but it's like every step you're taking through the day or the way you're standing is loading that in a way that's adding more stress to it. So eventually it will, like, it's like the old paperclip analogy. You can keep bending and bending and bending it, but eventually it will snap. Yeah. And that's kind of with our gait patterns.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 40, right? So like all of I have lots of friends who are older and stuff. I have a lot of friends that are guys because of my sport, snowboarder, but whatnot. And it really kills me how these guys like complain about, getting old so hard. And it's only, that fell out because, I'm 40 or I'm 45 or 50 or something like that. And I'm like, no, dude, it's because like you drag your feet when you walk and it's like
you just move like crap.
Like, and it's sometimes it's the most simple movements that you, like you say, it has become a pattern, and it's a bad pattern and it's hindering you. You've been doing it for 50 years. So of course you're going to get hurt, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think as humans, we're not meant to do the same movements day in, day out. Like that's not how we're built. Like we're built for movement and variety. I guess through like evolution or whatever, we'd be climbing to get to the next bit of food, or, bending and like foraging, or then we're hunting, or like we're not sitting in a chair all day or doing a specific job or role where we're constantly just twisting the same way for 8 hours. And then we go home and sit on a couch and go, I'm so sore. It's like that constant repetition as well sets up a lot of these bad patterns. And that's kind of then when you're, 40s, even sometimes earlier, is when we start to see a lot of this stuff, because a body can only take so much when it's not moving well.
Yeah. But we can whine all the time.
We're good at that.
We can whine about it.
Yeah. So it's a shame the jaw doesn't go first, so we can't whine.
Yeah, right? That'd be it. So gait assessment, getting back to this, what are you using technology to do your gait assessment? Like our like Stu uses, I don't know if you've heard of micro gait before, but he uses like the micro gait system. You might like some of the other ones like Opto Jump or Opto Gait is kind of like the products that come out of micro gait, but it's I use
I do have like a gait scan like software, but I barely use that anymore either. Like I've tried the different technologies, but for me, it's just been years of like knowledge, I guess, and watching people walk, and then it's going through specific movements that break down their gait, and look at where the I'm much more concerned about the patterns than what the technology is going to tell me, because sometimes when the tech's good, but I found for me a lot of the tech stuff was better. Well, the main reason I was using it was to be able to show clients what was happening. It didn't give me much more as a practitioner, like personally, with the stuff I was looking for. So these days I don't tend to use it as much. I will with certain things like pressure areas and things that I'm trying to, like highlight where something's happening or certain movements. But for me, it's kind of a lot more of it's just old school now. It's like eyeballing it, going through different movements, like, single leg positions, squatting positions, like jumping positions, even sit to stand, just starting to work out what's going on, like basic mobility testing, strength testing.
What's firing, what's not firing, how long is it firing for?
Yeah, basically. I just find that for me works really well. And then often once you then explain to the client what's going on, they feel it. They're like, oh yeah, I've been doing that for ages. Like that hip's always dropped, or it's like, yeah, because there's a problem there.
Yeah.
And then, once I get that awareness, then it's like they want to fix it. And I found sometimes with the tech stuff, I mean, some people are really tech minded. I just found for some people it confuse them more. Where if I just simplify it, I just go, here's kind of talk to them like they're, a 5-year-old. Basically, just put it into really, simple terms.
Layman's
here's
terms,
what you're doing. Here's what you're not doing. Your foot's doing this weird twist as you walk, or video them, show them, do it through slow mo back and forward to them, and they go, oh yeah, wow, that that would explain why it's sore, right? It's like, yeah. And then
it does help. Humans nowadays are so disconnected from their bodies. Even the ones like I'm an athlete. Like I thought that I was pretty in tuned, but then we have an associate. His name's David Lemke. He's over in the States, and he has this thing called the functional chain trainer, and it's basically backwards movement, right? Left and right brain backwards movement. But I went to this demo they had, and he hooked me up to all these electrodes, right, all down the back of my legs, down my back, and then he made me do this test where I got on the end of a massage table, and I grabbed the end of the massage table and I lifted my legs, so I was basically floating my legs, and then I was actually his guinea pig for his demonstration. I wasn't just there; I was the guinea pig. That he's getting all of his like trained professionals to watch like my little like electrodes going off, and he's like, okay, you got this professional athlete, okay, you guys tell me what's firing and when it stops, right? And it was amazing to see that how like as soon as my glutes, because you brought up glutes before, as soon as my glutes stopped being able to fire anymore, the whole thing kind of falls apart. We're like always so like lower back or like hamstrings, blah, blah, blah. But it was my glutes that was kind of like the core. And then once that core fell apart, it was like, gone. He's like, just stop doing the movement. Now, your lower backs are taking over. Like it's not.
Before you hurt yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. I lasted pretty long. Like,
good couple of seconds. It's good couple of seconds.
Yeah. But it's crazy to see because like I couldn't feel that. I couldn't necessarily feel my glutes starting to fail. I just felt like, oh, it's getting harder, right? So, but as soon as they start pointing it out to you, and then they start poking your glute, and you're like, see, this isn't going. It's not fired. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then they're like, oh, you should have came and seen me while you were still competing. I was like, oh, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, that's right. You tell me now, really?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But I mean, athletes, we're always the ones that you just keep on going, like, oh, I got plantar fasciitis. I'll sleep it off and tape it up and, keep on running. But like what you're doing is you're trying to fix the problem, right? Like what you did for yourself.
I had a skier a couple of years ago who had some knee stuff going on, and her coach kind of knew what I'd do. And I was down there at one of the camps with my son at the time anyway, so I was there, and he's like, can you just have a look at her? I was like, yeah. And she'd seen all these physios and stuff. I was like, just walk up and down towards me. And she walked. I was like, before I even did anything, I just could pick all these patterns that were going wrong, and then got her to start replicating some of the movements she was doing when she would land on the skis in single leg. And the coach was just looking, going, I think I know what you're about to say. And I'm like, I didn't have to say anything, hey, just take them through basic movements, what they're doing. People just sometimes forget to look at those simple things. And she was like, but I don't land on one leg. I was like, don't you? Like, so there's not that many times where you come out of a spin a bit weird and may just sort of load one leg more. She's like, oh yeah, all the time. I was like, yep. And that's why your knee is pretty much exploding. And then with her, because again, some athletes are really into barefoot training. They might be, surfers or gymnasts or whatever that their sport is barefoot. So it kind of makes sense. But I find there's a lot of athletes that don't maybe link the importance of strengthening your foot to hip connection because they're in shoes, or like this skiers in obviously ski boots. Like,
yeah, right.
I don't use my feet really. Like they're locked in a boot. And so I gave her some drills to go and do. And it was probably only about a month or so later, I was talking to the coach, and he was like, man, like whatever you did to her, give her more. Like all I was doing was activating a big toe to try and stabilize the midline of the foot more.
Yeah.
It started really simple, and just that was like helping with the pain. But then what she found was, as she took off into jumps, because she was now activating a big toe more, she was getting around the spins that she wasn't able to get like prior. She was actually getting more dry because as she drove off the big toe, it would activate the glute and send her into like a more controlled spin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy that like even in boots and things, like if you can activate the right muscles, even though, in your sport, like I was saying before, it's like that constant training and what you're doing daily. But then when it comes to sport time, even though she's not barefoot, the foot's like locked up in a boot, horrible position. The brain still wants to use it because she's been using it day in, day out in other, like, in walking and standing and stuff.
Became habit.
Yeah. So then you get into your boot, it's locked up, but it still wants to try, and those nerves are still firing. And then it can actually not only give you more stability and help with injuries, but it can give you more drive and help with performance at a high level, but also just, you're at the gym and you can start lifting a bit more, or, you're finding that, your glutes are actually strengthening and working properly now because you've trained them to come on and off at the right time. So, yeah, it's something else that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this podcast is sponsored by Barefoot Science, which is an in-shoe device that stimulates your mid-arch. And like I said, I come from snowboarding background, and I met up with these guys while I was snowboarding. And like, it was amazing having this in my snowboard boot. Cause like you say, normally, like if you're in a big boot, snowboard boots, ski boots, right? You kind of don't think about your feet. They're kind of switched off.
Yeah.
And you just are just like at the movement, and, you always think landing on your feet, but there's no brain feet connection. And, I mean, definitely the exercises that you do, movement of the big toe, would help for sure. But I was lazy, and so throwing these in my boots was kind of like.
Well, it's not late. Like, it's still, because that sort of stuff can still help even with doing exercises. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
It's not that it's lazy. Yeah. Yeah. Especially in a boot.
Yeah. But I just thought like having my feet switched on in my gear, in my snowboard gear, was just such a game changer. And it's like, I was sponsored by Barefoot Science, and I was going up to people and telling them about switching on my feet, and they just thought that I was like an infomercial, because I was just like, no, this is like so awesome. Like, my feet are turned on, and then just like, yeah, sure, Katie, like you just got me sponsored. But it works. But this one works.
Yeah.
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 But yeah.
I was going to say,
But
turning the feet on makes a huge difference.
yes,
Even if it
turning on
is
the feet.
activating, I mean, there's obviously exercises and stuff you can do, and things like snowboarding, because you're kind of stuck in flexion. You know, the boots are,
Yes.
you constantly flex. That makes it really hard for your glutes to fire, because the glutes come on
Yeah.
in extension, right? So you're leading
Yeah.
in flexion. It makes sense that your glutes aren't going to have the same connection, because everything in like a lot of board sports is in flexion.
Yeah.
But by turning on, what's that?
Ski boots too, right? Ski boots too.
Big
You're in
time.
flexion.
Probably
You're
worse.
like, yeah.
I reckon they're worse because, like, at least in snowboarding, you'll, as you're turning and stuff, you'll kind of still open up your hip a little bit. Where in skiing,
Right.
you're pretty well stuck in flexion all the time. And they're quite aggressive with the angle that ski boots are kind of tilted at.
Yeah. And they're always telling you, feel the front of your boots. That's like ski coaches, when they're doing it, they're always telling you to feel the front of your boots. So you're always like leaning forward.
Always forward.
Yeah.
So you can't get your glutes on. Anyway, it's all quads. It's a lot of calves. So it makes it really hard for your feet to turn on as well in that position. So using something like Barefoot Science insoles would be awesome. Like, even if you're training, muscles and movements and stuff outside of the sport, by putting that in your boot when you're out there on the mountain, it's going to help keep that more active through the day. And by the arch being more active through the day, will help the posterior chain, so like hamstrings, glutes, stay more active because the foot switched on. When the foot switches off, because that's that one thing between us and the ground, then your glutes have nothing to really push against. Like, the way muscles work is by pushing against something, right? And we can obviously flex muscles, but really how muscles work is as we have a force, mainly the ground, that we're pushing forward against, then that's going to help. We have to use muscles to activate to stop us from falling or to push us in a certain direction.
Yeah.
So by you having your feet more active in the insoles, it will make your brain want to activate the backside muscles that your glutes, hamstrings, and stuff. So they're really powerful for snow sports for sure.
Oh yeah, my buddies thought I was like crazy because I'm like, you got to try these, man. You got to try these. And they're like, yeah, sure. They're like, I got more orthotics, and I put orthotics in my boots. I'm like, whoa. I mean, like, how do you feel about orthotics, Paul?
How do I feel about them?
Yeah, how do you feel about orthotics? Because you said you're like, I was making them for myself, and like you were down that path. You were going.
Yeah, look, it's a relationship I've moved on from, that's for sure. But, yeah, look, that was my life. I worked for some big clinics, so that's what we did. We just pushed out heaps of orthotics. I used to think same thing in my snowboard boots. I'd wear them. Surfing I couldn't, obviously, but at one point I'm sure I would have even thought of stucking them onto my surfboard just to have that support when I was surfing. But now, I can just see there's a much better way, and that orthotics, there's still a time and place, obviously, for them. Like anything, it's like if you break your arm, it's like, well, I'm anti-plaster casts. It's like there's a time and place that these things have benefit, but you're not going to put a plaster cast on your arm just to try and, protect your arm, are you? Like, it's going to weaken your arm. It's going to limit movement. It becomes awkward of, certain things you can do. So
it's essentially a brace, right?
It is a brace, yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And the thing with, there's some different materials now that allow more movement, but the idea of an orthotic is to stop or limit movement. You're trying to reposition the foot, but you're doing that passively, not actively. Like with the Barefoot Science lines you're talking about, that's an active insole. Or you're trying to stimulate muscles and get the arch to do its own job. Where in a passive insole like an orthotic, you're just propping up into a certain position.
Yeah, right.
So it's like if you had lower back pain, you could put a brace on and just brace your back, which is very passive and may help with some pain for a while and help it heal, which is fine. But then you're not going to live in that for the rest of your life if you didn't have to. You might then go to something like, some kinesiology tape or something to try and stimulate some muscles and then a rehab sort of program to get it all strong again.
Yeah.
Whereas orthotics, for whatever reason, like we treat the foot so different to the rest of the body. Like we would not brace any other part of the body for a condition that could be rehabilitated.
Yeah, right.
There's just no other part of the body. Why would we? Well, what are you going to, and especially to prevent things too, like, because now people will just wear orthotics not even in pain. People come with bags full of insoles and orthotics in here. And I'm like, I want to get out of all these. I'm like, cool. So what started this journey for you? How'd you get into all these orthotics? Oh, I wanted to try and prevent injury. It's like,
I didn't have to pay for them because my insurance paid for them.
Yeah, right. And we get that too. People come in and just want new ones because they're insurance, they get X amount per year. Yeah. They come in and just want new ones. And it's like, what's the problem though? They're like, no, I just want new ones. And I'm like, right. I'm like, okay. But they are a brace.
Paul.
They're definitely a brace.
I'm out there in the world, okay? And I'm an orthotic wearer, and I hear Paul Thompson from the Barefoot movement. I want to get out of my orthotics. So, Paul, what are the 3 top foot exercises that you can give us? Because I know you probably have a program and everything that are like your go-to. Like when you're working out, it's like push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. So what are kind of the 3 main ones that you tell people to do?
I reckon the three simplest, because again, it really depends on what your problems are. You need to assess your mobility, strength. There's obviously lots of stuff, and then hip has a lot to do with your foot too. So, but for the foot specifically, 3 main things you would just start doing that'll help with the health of your feet would be something like toe yoga. So just trying to get a connection between the intrinsic muscles in your feet, so in the toes particularly. So big toe up in the air, little toes down with your foot flat on the ground. So you kind of push the little toes on the ground, lift the big toe up, and then hold that for a second, and then switching so the big toe pushes down to the ground, little toes up. All right, and then just switching back and forth. You can do one foot at a time, you can do both at a time. If you get really fancy, you can try and do alternating feet. So on one foot, big toe up, other foot, big toe down, and then switching.
I know our listeners are doing this right now. I know I can picture our listeners in their car, at their desk, whatever, sitting there trying to move their big toes.
The amount of clients that I'll just, get them to just start waking up their feet, and I say, I want you to, do this toe yoga. Like, oh, really? That's it? And I'm like, yeah, try now. And they're like, oh, I can't do that. Like, it's actually harder. Some people will get it quicker than others if their feet are, more active. But if your feet have been stuck in shoes for a long time, then the connection, I find, is the biggest thing you want to switch back on before you even strengthen anything. It's trying to get a connection back into the feet. So toe yoga is a really good one. You can also then do that standing. If you really want to get fancy, do it standing and do the alternating feet like we just spoke about. And as you are pushing, so let's say the left foot, the little toes are pushing down to the ground, big toes up, opposite foot's the opposite direction. You'll lean out to the left. You're actually leaning towards the little toe. And then you'll rotate around in kind of like a circular motion as you're standing. And as your weight then shifts to your right foot, you're switching so that your right little toes will push down, left little toes push up. So that you're actually then having to change the motion of what your toes are doing as your weight shifting back and forward or around the circle. And then change direction as well. Yeah.
Wow.
So this is really, really cool for lots of sports that have like lateral movements or side-to-side movements. It's really good. And it's like board sports and things, anything that where you're then having to shift weight all of a sudden. So things like netball, football, soccer, like you're like changing direction, having to land. You can then activate muscles better in your feet that are going to help stabilize you and keep you more balanced. And you'll find some of the muscles through the whole foot will start to switch on. That's a cool one. Short foot is always a go-to. So that's foot flat on the ground, short foot.
Yeah.
You can Google it. Like,
oh, I saw you have this one on your Instagram feed.
Yeah, I often repost it because it's just.
Oh my God, people!
Awesome.
You need to go to the Barefoot Movement, right? Is your Instagram feed?
The Barefoot Podiatrist.
The Barefoot Podiatrist, because people have to go see your arch. Your arch is like when you go from flat foot and then you bring your arch up. You're like, holy cow! Like if anyone had a 6-pack underneath their foot, I think it's you.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on that 6-pack.
But that exercise is called short foot.
Short foot is like what it was termed a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just where you are by lifting your arch up, you're contracting. So you're shortening your foot is kind of why it's called short foot. Pretty simple. But yeah, you're activating the abductor hallucis muscle, a lot of the intrinsic muscles through the arch. So it's one that, again, you want to get that connection back into those muscles. And that muscle that the short foot activates helps to keep the big toe straighter, which then helps with activation through the big toe, stabilizes your arch. So it's a really good one because that muscle switches off really quick in a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you jump online, it's probably easier to see it rather than explain it. But yeah, basically it's just foot on the ground, flat, pushing your big toe into the ground, but all the toes are flat, heel on the ground, big toe joint, little toe joint on the ground, and you're trying to squeeze your arch or shorten your arch and get that muscle in the arch to come on. Some people, you might need to like tap it as well. Like while you're trying to shorten the arch, tap it, try and wake it up. Because you can take a little while for that to turn back on. And then another just go to is like rolling your feet out, like getting a lacrosse ball or
the soles of your feet.
Soles of your feet, yeah.
Right.
A bit of dowel. And just rolling your feet out. Like if you're starting to activate muscles in the feet, they can start to tighten or get a bit sore. So releasing some of those muscles can be really nice. Or if they have been jammed up in a shoe or an orthotic, they're stuck in a certain position for long periods of time. So rolling out a lot of that fascia can be really good. On my Instagram as well, I've got there's a demonstration of rolling your foot out. Forward and back's really good. But you'll see like in the video, if you go sideways over your foot as well.
Oh yeah.
You're starting to get the bones to have to like invert and evert or sort of roll in and out.
Yeah.
Tilt sort of, inwards and outwards over the ball whilst you're rolling it out. So you're starting to loosen some of the joints up, which then helps with, again, how much pliability you have through the foot, because it needs to be able to adapt to different surfaces underneath us, like our hand. So that'd be the main three. Another mobility, there's 2 strengthening ones there, the toe yoga and short foot. Yeah, 2 mobility ones would be the rolling the feet out, and another one's just putting all your fingers between your toes is like a nice one to start to get some splay, so and get those toes to widen out again. And while your fingers between your toes, you can gently sort of twist, sort of wring the foot out, hold the heel with one hand, fingers between the toes with the other hand, and gently kind of just twist and wring the foot out to start mobilizing all those joints as well. But the wider your feet are or the toes, the more splay you can get, the more balance and activation you'll get as well. Just think like a push-up. A push-up with closed hands or your fingers all squished in together is less stable. It's kind of hard to work on your shoulders. Whereas if you widen those fingers out, gives you a bigger base of support. You'll find the muscles in the hand will be more active, which will then activate muscles in the shoulder. The feet are the same. The more splayed out and active your toes are, it'll activate more of those muscles through the arch, help then stabilize your hips, and can even help turn your core on when done well. So yeah, widening those feet out would be another go-to. So there's 4 bonus.
4 bonus one. I like that.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's good that you talk about splay, because another one of my buddies is correct toes. And I think that you have some posts about correct toes too. But I think that because like I know my mom's feet, like she spent years in too narrow she probably spent her whole life, right, in too narrow of a toe box. And like when you look at her feet, her like toe beside her big toes like fully crowding over her other toe, and then all of the other ones are getting squished to the side, and she's like, well, I stopped wearing those shoes, I don't know why I'm still getting these like bunions. And I'm like, well, you probably don't realize it, but you're probably still rubbing because now your foot's like demented or deformed.
Basically. deformed. Yeah. Like, and the thing with when we take on a new position, so with bunions, for instance, as that toe pushes across, it turns off a lot of the muscles because that joint's not centrated. Like, joints need to be centrated. So it's like a pulley system. If that pulley system's I just think of literally a pulley, like a wheel at the top with a bit of string each side. If that pulley is aligned and all good, really easy to pull either side of that string. Where if that string is kind of out of whack and off the pulley, it becomes really hard to move it. So you would give up, right? Because like, oh, this sucks, or you try and fix it. Our body just gives up.
Is that like the great toe? People don't know the great toe is your big toe.
Big toe, yeah.
Using the jargon, and those there you go. There's the technical version. But in your experience with people with bunions, if they start doing this big toe movement exercises, even just lifting it up, do you find that the pulley starts realigning?
Yeah, but that's where the mobilizing is good too. So, like correct toes to try and like get some or any sort of toe spaces. Are a good like go-to to try and just like passively help get the toes to stretch out a bit. But that's where that one I just spoke about with fingers between the toes can be good, or like getting the joint and actually just trying to make it move, or get a professional to like manipulate and mobilize the toe for you, because it does need mobility. Without mobility, you can't create stability. So you still want to get it moving, like give it some work. Mm-hmm. But once that starts to mobilize again, then getting the muscles engaged around it can really help create some stability again. That's all our body wants is stability. We're trying to find a stable, surface to be on so we can then not fall over, or we can have more power to move forward in movements. Yeah. When that big toe is in the wrong position, we lose any sense of stability through that. So we compensate by using other toes, other movements to get around that sort of problem. Yeah. But you can definitely, depending on how bad it is and how much structural change has happened, you can definitely change bunions, and they may not go back to fully, like normal looking. Yeah. But they can definitely start to get into a better position. But more importantly, from my point of view, is as long as we're seeing that big toe starting to reactivate, getting more strength and stability to it and more mobility, then those feet can become fully functional again for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Those shoes with it's so fashionable, dudes with like the pointy shoes, or, women's shoes and whatever. It's like, now knowing what I know with my feet and how I feel about them, it makes me cringe. I think those poor people wearing those, imprisoning their feet.
Yeah. And it's a lack of awareness, half the time.
Well, and it starts at such a young age. Like you have small kids, Paul, right? Like, shoes for kids at a really young age. Like I got a 2-year-old and I've been looking at his shoes because like we're quite bare feet, or I have these like little moccasins or something that I put him in that's just real thin soled and flexible. But when I start looking at running shoes to put him in, because he wants to be on his bike and stuff, and I don't really want to like have him barefoot or just in moccasins on a bike for safety reasons. Yeah. But kids' shoes that are anatomically shaped are so expensive. In my mind, have you found any like more like economical choices that for parents? Because like kids destroy shoes.
They destroy them. We mainly use, for my kids didn't wear shoes until the eldest one, when he started school, had to wear shoes. So they were very strict on the sort of shoes they had to be in. So I went and gave the school principal an hour lecture. The presentation.
Oh, the school was strict, right? Of course, school uniform.
Yeah.
Right?
So I had the whole school policy changed.
That's awesome.
So that he could wear the sort of shoes I wanted. But we mainly use like Vivo Barefoot for the kids, or Paper Crane is another good one for especially littler kids. But you do pay, they're not crazy. Like what Vivo for kids are probably around 100. Australian.
Yeah, but like you can go out and get a pair of Nikes for like $20-$30, on a deal. And that's why people do it. And that's what's fueling this
But no, I look at it as well. I mean, when possible, they don't wear them anyway, so they're not really trashing them because they're not wearing them as much as they would a normal shoe, I guess. But I find I'd rather pay that bit extra now, knowing that it's going to help with their developmental patterns, like movement patterns, posture, activating all these good muscles now, rather than I see like my son's mates, that he's 9, and even by 9, a lot of these kids that have been in traditional shoes for, their short lives have no glutes. Their pelvis is already starting to twist and take the shape of what the raised heel shoe is doing. Like, it's changing how they move, which then puts them at a higher risk of injury and lots of, issues later on, lower back issues, hip issues, feet issues. But the big thing when kids are little, kind of under, say, around 10, girls and boys differ a little with different ages, but most of their feet are cartilage. It's not bone until kind of, well into, I don't know off the top of my head, but say around 10, give or take. So when you're sticking them into shoes that have those non-anatomically correct toe boxes where it pulls the toes in, because it's all cartilage and so like movable and pliable, it will start to take the form of that shoe. Yeah. And when the bones start to form, they're forming in a deformed position, which is setting them back from the get-go. Now, the downside of doing the opposite, so my youngest, who's 5, he won't even fit into most barefoot shoes now because his feet are just so wide, and broad and strong and splayed that even in like kind of healthier style shoes, he's still squished in now because his feet are how they should be. And so like his feet are amazing. They're so chunky and splayed and wide. So for him to go into like a traditional kind of normal shoe would be painful for him. Like, he just wouldn't be able to do it.
Custom shoes, man. They're going to come back. You can go to shoemaker.
Well, for a while there, we used to put my eldest, all he wore, it was only on hot days, was wetsuit booties.
Oh, yeah.
They were soft. They gave him a bit of protection. But like the reef ones, they had a little bit of like a sole. That was it. And that's only when we were like hiking and doing stuff where it was like, kind of dangerous. He'd even ride his bike in them.
Yeah.
My kids skate barefoot most of the time. Like, I don't know, the more awareness and they just, I don't know, they know how to, they treat their feet with more respect, I guess, because they know that they're not protected by a shoe.
Yeah. That's just it, right? Yeah.
So,
but it's kind of like
hard. Shoes are hard. They are expensive.
Especially, well, I mean, just going to talk about the toe box. Like, I've been watching I've just watched The Last Dance on Netflix with Michael Jordan and the Bulls and everything. And I see these big basketball players, right? And I know what I know about feet and shoes and whatever. I'm just looking at their shoes that they're wearing and I'm just like, God, I wonder how much better. I wonder if they would play. I wonder how much more Michael Jordan could have jumped or, if he had his feet positioned properly.
Seriously, hey. But in saying that, even now with what I know, like with everything I know about feet right now, if you gave me the money that Michael Jordan got to wear those shoes, I'd take it. I'd wear those shoes.
True enough, right? True enough.
I'd deal with the pain. I would deal with the pain.
Yeah. I just wish that
that's the thing, right? But a lot of people don't realize too, a lot of those shoes that those guys wear are custom made.
Yeah.
They're not the ones you buy off the shelf. They are custom made to their feet. They're still not ideal, but Michael Jordan and stuff, like Nike custom make their shoes.
Yeah.
So, we all the young kids who come in here like, I want to wear those shoes like so and so. And I was like, yeah, but they were made for his feet. Like, and they're still bad for his feet, but your feet aren't like his.
Yeah, and, his has somewhat of a fighting chance to have a little bit of toe box that fits.
A little bit, right? Like at least it's made to his specifications, where all the other ones are just made to whatever, just one size kind of fits all.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, I think we're running out of time here, Paul, and but it's been such a pleasure having you on here, and your years and years of knowledge of of the feet and podiatry. Do you have anything that you want to leave our subscribers and our listeners with?
No, I just think if you are in like supportive shoes or orthotics and that style of footwear, and you decide you want to take on that journey of activating his feet, trying to get into a more natural, functional way of moving, just do it with some respect to your feet. One of the big mistakes I see people make is just trying to throw away what their current setup is, go to a new setup and do their same activities as if nothing's changed, and you get hurt. Like, you will get hurt.
Yeah.
So do it slowly. If you're introducing, it's like a gym protocol, like you said before, with the Barefoot science, insoles and stuff. Like, it is like a gym for your feet, right? So you're not just going to wake up one day and go, I'm going to get healthy today and go and spend 8 hours at the gym. Like, everyone knows you're going to come back really sore and probably injured. The feet are the same. Just treat them with respect, small increments, see how you feel the next day. If you need some days off in between, do that as well.
Yes, I like that. Do it in incremental steps before jumping into things.
Yeah, so just small increments is a big one that I'd leave you with, just so that you don't injure yourself, and that's kind of one thing that turns people off, or makes it think like it's not working, is because I've had people that have literally gone from wearing shoes, orthotics, decided they want to go on this new path. These are runners. But one of them in particular was a marathon runner. He decided, yep, I like what you're talking about. Saw some stuff online, went and just got barefoot shoes, went and did a training session of, it was something like 20K. It was something ridiculous. He was like in a world of hurt, and then thought it wasn't, thought it was a bad thing or not a healthy thing to do because he was so injured from it.
Yeah, right.
But he literally went from wearing all this support, no activation drills, did nothing other than change the shoes, and went and tried to do his normal training session. Like, of course you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
You're now relying on your own body that hasn't been conditioned to do that. So just treat it with respect, small increments. And if you're getting stuck, reach out. Like, get a practitioner to assess you or to give you a plan. Like, sometimes we can get caught up in all the information online as well. So, it's fine to reach out and just get some guidance and know that you're doing it well to the point that you're going to succeed and come out of it with a more functional body rather than just a more injured, painful body.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely makes sense. And we've had others on our show that say the exact same thing, Don't jump into it, take it incremental steps, talk to someone, read someone's journey to learn from their mistakes. And
just think of it like a rehabilitation process.
Yeah.
It is rehabilitating your feet. So it will take some time, some effort, a bit of patience, but you'll get there. Just chipping away at it and enjoy the journey. Like, it's actually really fun when you start activating your feet, feeling more, getting an awareness of how you actually move, and starting to understand how you move and a better, understanding of your own body. It's empowering. So enjoy it.
And then and then as we age, we're not like, oh man, it sucks turning 50. We're like, oh, love life. It's 50. Like, let's go, right?
100%.
60, 70, bring it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you get a niggle, you can start to read into it and go, all right, what's going wrong? But the more you do it, the more you start to like pick up on cues more quickly and then be able to like nip them in the bud. So enjoy it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, Paul, people can check out your website out at www.thebarefootmovement.com.au. Because you're in Australia, and the Barefoot Podiatrist on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
So any of our listeners out there, if you guys want to go check out Paul Thompson and see what he has going, then please visit those spots. And if you're new to this podcast, hit that subscribe button, because you want to hear us every week talking to great guys like Paul. And Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to hearing what you're going to do in the future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Born to Be Barefoot podcast with myself, Kate Yuki, and the wonderful Stuart Gordon. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star review. We'll see you guys next week.